NZ Aerosports, Icarus Canopies, now Gyro. That's right, we've rebranded, and Gyro is our next generation. It honours our founder, as that's the name we knew him by, but Gyro also marks the start of a new chapter. And not to be biased, but it's going to be fucking epic. Long story short, we're more us than ever, so if you're new to the sport, or even a Sky God Ninja Turtle, welcome. I think our valiant leader Lucy, Gyro's daughter, says it best.
And we still got that fuck yeah attitude. Rebrand! Woo!
Rebrand woo indeed, Lucy. Anyway, head over to gyro.com for more info and get amongst you legends.
I was 19, broke, unemployed, and sold my girlfriend's canopy for drug money. So I thought I better sew her a new one. What a sentence, and what a story. This describes the humble yet outrageous beginnings of NZ Aerosports, the home of Icarus Canopies, in the words of our founder himself. From getting a paratrooper toy from his mom, watching parachutes at the DZ as a 6-year-old, jumping off the wharf with a parachute made from bed sheets, doing his first jump at 16, sewing his first canopy on a borrowed machine at 19, and starting to sell parachutes out of a garage in 1986, Paul Gyro Martin had an undying love for the sky. Our company started with one man with the wildest of spirits and a true blue sky dream, a renegade. In the time that Gyro created and ran the Icarus Canopies brand until he passed away in 2017, he pushed everything he had to its limits. We miss him, and we always will. Gyro is the next generation of NZ Aerosports. It honors our founder, of course, because it was the name we all knew him by, but Gyro the rebrand also marks the start of a new chapter, our next jump. Gyro is the space between sound and silence, art and science, chaos and calm. Gyro is a state of epic tranquility that transcends understanding. That moment, in the door, in free fall, mid-swoop, where nothing but the present exists. A perfect balance of euphoria and thrill. Gyro captures our passion for flying and our commitment to designing break-the-fucking-rules canopies that deliver pilots pure, wild flight. Hey gang, so I got a new book out. It's called The Upside of Fear, and it's exactly what you think it's about. It's about the good side of, well, getting scared. In it, we talk not only about the science and biology behind fear, but the psychology as well. And it's not just coming from me, it's coming from some of the best in the sport. Omar Alhigelan, Jeff Provenzano, Maxine Tate, and so many more have contributed their sometimes terrifying stories to the book to help you overcome your fear. So head to the lunaticfringepodcast.com. You're going to find the link to the book there, as well as the other books. It's available in ebook, paperback, hardback, and audiobook right now.
Coming straight from the cockpit, it's another episode of Lunatic Fringe with the fucking pilot.
Ready, set, go. Back, actually not back in the can for another edition of the Lunatic Fringe podcast, because I'm sitting in a beautiful backyard on the southernmost point of Helsinki talking to someone that I may or may not have met before. We'll try and figure it out. But meanwhile, who the fuck are you and what do you do?
Hey, Dean. Rich Grimm, and I guess I do a lot of stuff, but, known for throwing a pretty cool boogie once in a while around the world.
Man, what a cool thing to be known for. I mean, we were just talking about this pre-podcast, but what an absurd life we get to live because we once upon a time decided to jump out of a plane.
Right. Seriously, right? And the places skydiving takes us.
Right.
And the people we get to meet.
Well, it's kind of funny, too, because even if you and I haven't met, your name comes up all the time because you are responsible for some of the most iconic images in skydiving because of the boogies and the locations that you throw these things. I mean, did you ever think?
No. What's funny, and I guess in skydiving, we all sort of, if you become in the business and whether you're a DZO or a pilot or a rigger, whatever, we all once we make that first jump, and we all make that first jump, we're just a no one at the drop zone, showing up on a Saturday, scared shitless like all the other students, right? We all start there, all of us in the sport. And as we progress over the years, we sort of find our little niche in the sport, like what we like to do. And some people become DZOs, some people become just longtime instructors, some people become pilots, jump pilots, some people just whatever, some people go on to be world champions, they want to compete and stuff. And for me, it was skydiving. It was something fun to do. I enjoyed it, and I never knew, from when I did the first boogie in Belize, that was going to be a one-off boogie. And if someone would have told me in 2005, when we did our first boogie, that it would become hundreds of people skydiving in 3 weeks in a row in the Maldives, I'd be like, no way, like that. And so what happens is we all find our thing, and I guess that was my thing, right?
I mean,
is doing the boogies.
It would have been parachutist. I'm sure it would have been parachutist the first time I ever saw a picture of a jump over the big blue hole. And I mean, are you
right? It was a cover shot Bruno took. Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
No, and I mean, just jaw dropping. You're like, wait a second, what the fuck is going on there? How is that even allowed? And then for it to become such a regular thing. I mean, I know so many people that's either already been ticked off their bucket list, or it's, at the top of the bucket list. And that's just one of the boogies you throw.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And in the blue hole, which is very special to me, Belize was our first boogie. And believe it or not, we only had, there was 10 of us that jumped the blue hole the first boogie, because people were like, what? I'm going to jump my gear into the water? What? Wait, what? and then we're going to scuba dive it? What? And trust me, we were flying out to the blue hole the very first time. This is my first boogie. And look, people think, I always talk about this, because even though I've thrown so many boogies, I'm always still worried about the boogie before it happens, right? Like, you're scared. What can go wrong? Are the guys with machine guns going to come and stop the boogie?
Right.
And so I can remember flying out to the blue hole on that first jump. I was scared shitless. I mean, seriously, we're flying out over the water. It's 55 miles. I've never seen the blue hole from the air. Like, I got to spot the load. Like, what are the winds doing? If we land on that, and at the blue hole, if you go too far to the east and you land out there on the outside of the reef, there's no way someone can get you. You're basically going to die. I mean, like, so we're, so we're flying out there, and we're, we're going out with some very experienced skydivers. We were all scared to death, and and sharks are in the water, and it's 450 feet. The stupidest idea I've ever had in my life, but it's turned out to be awesome.
Of course, but I mean, that's kind of the blueprint for almost everything I've fallen in love with skydiving, right? Is it could have gone another direction.
Of course. Oh yeah, really. And so, and those things, and probably because of the blue hole jumps, I've dispatched more people to water landings, more civilians than probably anyone in the world in history. And every time we fly out there, and the thing I love about jumping into the blue hole is, we all know the skydivers who, they've got a couple thousand jumps, they've competed, they've been at nationals, they're the big shot at their drop zone, they think they've done it all. And when you put them in the airplane and they're flying their gutter gear and they've got their flotation device on, and you're flying out to the blue hole, you can see the excitement and the fear. And I'm talking people, thousands of skydives, and you're going out there. And then when we get close, and now, I've been out there so many times, I know right when we're getting close, and I'll tell people, okay, we get to the one reef where I know the blue hole's coming up, and I tell you, hey guys, blue hole's in about a minute. You're going to see it out to that side of the plane. Everyone's like, oh, they're looking to see it and everything. And you can feel the energy level in the airplane Like you can cut the excitement and the nervousness with a knife. And to me, I love that. But what people don't know, myself and the pilot, we're the more scared shitless people because I'm spotting this. I got to get this right. And look, in skydiving, it doesn't matter. You could have 100 successful loads to the blue hole, but when you kill that first person or
Yep.
whatever, now you're the no good asshole that put those people into the water and they all drown,
Yep.
right?
You fucked that one goat.
So yeah, exactly. So
It's funny though, because it's especially when you talk about the really experienced people on their way out there and getting that fear for some weird reason. Of course, we seem to just thrive in that environment and absolutely love it. I mean, I remember
right.
being talked back into jumping after I'd taken a long break because I'd been flying so much, and on just another load with regular gear over a regular drop zone on the climb up, I'm shitting my pants like I was an AFF student. But part of me was, oh my God, I love this so much.
Right.
You know,
Right.
for whatever warped reason that we seem to gravitate towards that kind of fear. It's just amazing.
Right. And I always tell people if you're not scared climbing to altitude in the airplane, you're highly unaware of the circumstances you are about to encounter.
Yep, yep,
Right.
absolutely. It's
So
yeah, and that's the thing, right, too, is for all levels. My favorite story is always to hear, especially when I talk to incredibly experienced jumpers and world record holders and gold medalists, is them telling stories of the fear they had to overcome to be able to be successful in skydiving. And those are the ones you want to hear because I want to know my hero was shitting his pants.
right. And we talk about this like with some of the people that help me with the boogies and stuff, when you're and I hate to say this, but when you're a name in skydiving, the pressure's on, right? Like, I
Yes.
don't care if you're Dan BC or your Omar or your Bruno Broken. The pressure's, if Bruno Broken falls down on a landing, like everyone in the world knows about it, right? Like if some guy with 200 jumps does it, that's just another guy. But so, and the things that we do, if we run an event and that event doesn't go well, the pressure's on, or a jump, and I always say, the pressure is on the world champions that are leading like the big ways. The pressure is more on them than me because
Yeah.
I'm expected to screw up, right? So the pressure and so what happens, I think a lot of times people don't understand, like those of us who have, and I hate to use this because the whole, oh, you're a famous skydiver, or you're somebody, but those of us who have made it in the sport and have had an impact on the sport, we work harder than everyone else in the sport, and B, we really care about the outcome of the things that we do,
Oh yeah.
right? And that's right.
I
So
remember I remember having an amazing conversation with a name you'll know, Tom Noonan. And
yeah, dear friend of mine,
absolutely,
yes.
and Tom, the first time I had him on the podcast, we were talking. Obviously, we got around to talking about Skydive Everest and everything that went into that. And he actually had me erase this from the episode because he was a bit embarrassed after the fact. But um, he said I would finish the event, and when I would board the plane in Kathmandu to go home, I'd always make sure I had a window seat so I could pull my baseball cap over my eyes, lean against the window, and fucking cry with relief that it went well and that it was over. And
Oh,
that resonated with me. I'm like, I can't even fathom. I mean, at the end of the day, I had to either not kill myself, not kill a tandem student, or not crash the plane.
right.
But he's talking about multiple loads and events and high profile stuff, and I can't fathom the level of pressure that must go into that.
When we fly, and I use the blue hole again, when we're going out there, and people don't real, I'm looking at everyone's gear, and I'm looking, and anyone that's been out to the blue hole, they know I give them the briefing, because I always say it's the easiest jump in the world that could kill you the quickest, right? So what when we're going out there and I'm checking everyone's gear and I make sure everyone's got the briefing and I show them the pictures and I tell them go on your computer so you know north, south, east, west. You be quiet in the plane on the way out so I can talk to the pilot so we can get the spar rate and all this stuff. So if they're going to put their complete faith into me to keep them alive on this epic jump, I'm going to, of course, I don't ever want anyone to get hurt, but I'm going to put the most effort I can into ensuring that this all goes well. And when we jump and when we're on the boat and everyone's safe and everyone's out of their gear and everyone's high-fiving, I'm elated because I have 15 jumps into the blue hole and it's still exciting as hell for me.
Sure.
But when I get on that dive boat, I'm just like, no one died. Right? Like I mean, because if you get hurt out there, there's the Navy SEALs aren't going to come rescue you. We're in Belize. Like we're self-sufficient. If you do a downwind landing and break your ribs in the blue hole, you're going to have to ride 3.5, 4 hours back on the dive boat to get help. Right. And I just tell people this is not the place to do your swoop, just sink it in, get in the water, be in the blue hole, get picked up and get your ass on the boat so I don't have a heart attack.
That's got to be the most unique mindset for a party planner ever is, oh, thank God no one died at my party.
And I always say this to all the boogies and coming up, we have our 20th anniversary party. So this will be 31 boogies in 20 years.
Wow.
And I always tell people the most I want to have happen to you is a sunburned nose and a check liver late. Like that's the worst injury I want you to have. Like I don't want, and what no one wants to get hurt skydiving but I think I tell people, look, like even here in Costa Rica, like we have a whole, my background, I was a fireman for 30 years. So I have that emergency medical background. So I'm always set up at every boogie. But like when we were in the Maldives, like we had 2 people get injured. We had to take the jump plane, set it up, put a life raft in it, satellite phones, and fly to the main island to get to the hospital an hour and 45 minutes with the nurse from the hotel, right? So these things are like, as an organizer, it's bad enough being a DZO and day to day, just watching the normal day to day, because I always say, skydivers can fuck up a junkyard. So the normal day-to-day stuff as being a DZO is stressful enough. But now, at least, when I had the drop zone in Oceanside, I had the fire department across the street with paramedics. I had the life flight helicopter at the airport. Okay, if something happens, they're going to get treated perfect. And if their life can be saved, it's going to be saved. When we're jumping in places like Seychelles or Maldives or Belize or all these places we've been to jump, I tell people you don't want to get hurt skydiving at all, but you really, really, really don't want to get hurt here, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's no network, right? There's no safety net. It's you're bringing the entire network with you on the plane to the boogie, and that's
right.
Not a place you want to get hurt.
No. And so the pressure's on. So that's, for me, running the boogies it's a blast. But for me, it's always at the end of the boogie, on the last load and the last parachute lands, it's just like,
Sure.
Okay, no one died.
I can only
it's a lot of pressure.
Now, how did it all start for you? Like, when was the first jump? What made you decide you wanted to jump out of an airplane? Because you said you were 30 years as a firefighter.
Right. So I was when I was 19, I got hired full time on the Sharon, Pennsylvania Fire Department, little town north of Pittsburgh, right on the Ohio-PA border.
Okay.
And I'd always wanted to make a jump, watching the old parachutes in the war movies and all that stuff. And I'm like, man, that sounds fun. And so we got some guys at the fire department and said, hey, would you guys want to go a parachute jump. And everyone's like, yeah, that'd be fun. So we went to Cleveland Sport Parachute Club, it was called at the time, and now it's called Skydive Cleveland. And so the Gates family owned it. Dale Gates was the owner. His son Bob, who still jumps, was like the pilot and helped him out and stuff. And a bunch of us went out there and we made our first jump in 1980, and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And then, went back again, and a couple of things. Number one, the gear kind of scared me. This is T10s and belly mounts, and and I can remember this is so funny. I remember Dale Gates, he was the instructor, the DZO. And I said, Mr. Gates, I said, because these guys were flying these square parachutes. And I'm like, Mr. Gates, how do I get a square parachute? Because, I'm hitting the ground, like a ton of bricks. And he's like, oh, well, Rich, you have to have like 500 jumps to fly a square parachute. And I'm thinking, I am not going to live through 500 of these round parachute jumps. And so things went on, and Ohio weather is not the best, even in the summertime, for jumping. And I would drive up there and wait all day and couldn't get on, because the weather and stuff. And then things just got in the way. Went up the next summer and did some jumps. So things just got in the way, and I stopped. And then I moved to Southern California, and I got hired on the Ontario, California Fire Department just outside of LA. And I was like, okay, I miss skydiving, and I was always following it, right?
Sure.
And then I saw, wow, everyone has a square parachute now.
Right.
And now there's no more belly mount reserves. The parachute's on the back with the main, so we went up to Skydive Taft. Again, got a bunch of firemen. We went up to Skydive Taft. Bill Jones, I don't know if you know Bill, he's been in skydiving for, his first drop zone was 1961.
Oh,
right?
wow.
And so I go up there and so now I got to go through AFF, right? Because it's all different. So I go through AFF again. I was hooked. I had my A license 4 weeks later, right? And then that was it. And so from 1990 till now, so it was like, went at it hard, right? And yeah.
Now, how did we talked about this pre-podcast. How did you become Ray Farrell's favorite liberal?
Because I've paid him so much money over the years.
It's funny. We talked again pre-podcast about that it's half a degree, you said, of separation in the sport. It's you either know somebody or a dozen people that know somebody, and Ray Farrell is one of my favorite people in skydiving. But he's also one of the most misunderstood people in skydiving because, man, oh man, he can scare people off.
Look, Ray, and I get it. And I always say, if you're a DZO for more than 10 years, and if you haven't choked to death a skydiver with your bare hands, man, you are doing well. And a lot of skydivers that aren't in the business don't understand that aspect of the sport. Sure. Right. And that's a whole other side. And DZOs don't really talk about it. Event organizers don't really talk about it. But there's the whole underbelly of skydiving where, and it's only, look, 1% of the skydivers cause you 99% of the grief, right?
Yep.
Because I can tell you, I've had thousands of people come to my boogies the last 20 years. And I can, maybe on one hand, there's the people that have been just a thorn in my side, right? Sure. And whether they don't want to fly their parachute safely, they think the rules don't apply to them, they don't, they're mean to your staff, or they're just have anger issues, or they're coming in trying to jump stones, like whatever it is. There's this thing when you're the DZO and you've spent hundreds of thousands of your own dollars to get a drop zone going. And now you have some guy that, well, why can't I swoop downwind through the pattern, right? And because there's those people out there.
Yep.
So it's it can be, there's days where, I have taken a number of skydivers aside and said, "Though you can never come to one of my boogies ever again, right? Because of things that they do. And you have to push me, like you can ask anyone. I'm the easiest going guy and pretty relaxed. But when I get pushed to the brink and
Sure.
when I lose it, I completely lose it. And I hate myself for it because I just go, everything goes red. And I'm
Yeah.
just like,
Yep.
you know, so for Ray, I think, he's had the drop zone, he had the drop zone forever. He leased airplanes to people. People don't pay you for your airplane lease. Drop zone, he's fighting with the county there, Yolo County. So
Yeah.
look, I get it. I get it. But I told you,
Oh, yeah.
Ray's Ray's a burnt marshmallow. He's all crusty on the outside and soft and gooey on the inside.
Oh man, I love that. You wrote that to me the other day and I laughed hard over that one. And I told you the same story that I've told before. I was jumping across Keys, but I was training to get my instrument rating in Northern California during the Cross Keys winters. And I had never, like a lot of people, I grew up near a drop zone, but I wasn't a skydiver, so I didn't have a clue there was a drop zone there. And all of a sudden, I
Right.
found out that not only is there a drop zone in Davis, California, but that it's a big drop zone, by comparison. And I decide, all right, well, this would be a great place to work for the winter. But this is the first drop zone I've ever been to where like the DZO wanted to meet me and interview before I even could think about doing work jumps there. And I took a gamble because everybody told me, oh, Ray Farrell, he's a fucking hard ass, man. He just maybe you're not his type because you guys might rub the wrong way and who knows. And so I was kind of nervous when I sat down and Ray's got that thick accent and he sits there and he's just got that resting bitch face that you're never really sure where you stand with him. And I had to give him a resume and he read the resume. And I used to work for Michael Hawks in Las Vegas, and
Uh-huh.
Hawks was
Right.
famous for being one of the worst DZOs on the planet. And he said to me, oh, you work for Michael Hawks, so you know how to work for a hard ass. And as I told you, I
Mhm.
looked him in the eyes, and in my mind, I'm like, fuck it, throw the dice. Ray, if you're twice the prick people say you are, you're still only half the prick Michael Hawks was. And he looked at me with that
That's
Ray look, and he kind of leans back a little
uh,
bit, and then he finally cracked a smile, stood up, shook my hand, says, "All right, yeah, all right, you can jump here."
right. Well, and I can tell you, look, and I've gotten airplanes from a lot of people, and all the people I've gotten airplanes from, because my thing is in skydiving, you have to surround yourself with the best people. In
Mm,
my boogies, I surround myself with the best people. DZOs would kill for the staff that I bring to my boogies, right?
sure.
The load organizers, the packers, the pilots, the planes. I've leased planes from a lot of different people for the boogies, and wow, every plane was great. But I can tell you, Ray cares about his aircraft and his pilots and the spots and the right. And
Yep.
he cares, and that's the thing. And when you care about that, and you have people that don't care like what you care for. And look, I've had people come load organize at my boogies, and I wasn't impressed, right? And so like there's a standard. So when you have a standard that you want people to meet, right? And and if you're working your ass off to make the DZO go or make the drop zone go as the DZO, you want the people that are working with you to also work their asses off.
Yes.
And the other thing is to have that standard, right? And so for Ray, look, like we could tell stories, we that could be 5 podcasts telling Ray stories. But I can tell you the other thing is I would have never got Oceanside started in California when it was Tsunami Skydivers of Oceanside. I would have never got it started without Ray Farrell
Mm,
and the insight he's given me and the airport support, the airplane support, and look, I was into his pocket for thousands of dollars. When you're a brand new drop zone and you're surrounded by legacy drop zones and you're trying to get started, it was tough. And now and then, but he was patient with me, and he would come down and train the pilots and say what so like but look, there's a lot of guys like Ray in the business, and
sure.
who've been around forever. And look, Ray, super master rigger, airplane guy. I mean, there's not much in the sport that, he hasn't done. And so, and someone like that, and when you're a new DZO, like you rely on someone like that. And, I would call Ray all the time and ask for advice or talk about the aircraft or whatever. And I said, telling you about Bill Jones real quick, who I made my first jump with when up in Taft when I came back. Well, Bill and I became really good friends. He's come to my boogies and Bill's. I think Bill's 91 or 92 years old now. But I can remember Bill telling me we were at the Nicaragua boogie and we're sitting there in the bar and the Nicaragua boogie was a shit show. The wind howled for, we made a day and a half of jumps and then the wind blew 100 miles an hour. Oof. And we put a whole load in the ocean trying to get jumps in. That's a whole nother podcast of things that have gone wrong at boogies. But anyway, Bill gave me the greatest advice. He said, Rich, listen, I'm going to tell you, this is the best advice as a DZO anyone's ever going to tell you. When someone comes and asks you something, one of the fun jumpers, you say no. And when they come and ask again, you say, fuck no. He said, that's all you need to know about being a DZO.
That's great advice.
That's great advice.
That really is. Well, it's funny too, because like you said before, there's a lot of people that are like Ray in that they're incredibly giving of their time and energy in the sport, but they also don't suffer fools. I mean, that's the biggest thing I could say about Ray is he wouldn't take your shit. I mean, if you did a good job for him, he'd put up with a fair amount of horsing around and a fair amount of personality, if we want to put it that way. But he wouldn't take your bullshit. And that's the same for a lot of people that I've met across the sport. And speaking of another person that I know we both know that Ray helped out was Billy Sharman when he was over Pretoria. I mean, Billy, guy that I worked with and jumped with in Davis when I was flying for Ray. And it was funny because I actually, the first time I've spoken to Ray outside of having him on the podcast a couple of years back was I talked briefly on a messenger call because he was at Billy's place getting ready to go on safari with the motherfucker.
That was just, So they were, we did the Skyfari boogie and we used Billy's aircraft and we had a great time, so Billy relies on Ray a lot for advice and we all, it's funny because I don't care how many thousands of skydives you have. You could be a world champion skydiver with 20,000 skydives and 18 gold medals. But when you open your drop zone, you don't know shit about shit because that's the whole other side of the skydiving business. And when you're jumping out of the plane, that's one thing. When you're in the office writing the bills, that's the other, right? So to that learning curve, and one of my dearest friends in skydiving, Lyle Waddell, he had a drop zone in Canada forever, big CRW competitor, great guy. We're like brothers. We've known each other for 34 years. Anyway, I would call Lyle and be like, Lyle, what do you think of this? What do you think about that? And you need, you need those mentors in the sport. And now what's funny is I have those younger DZOs that call me now, and I've become the old crusty guy,
I bet.
And so, but you need guidance in the sport for when you become in the business end of the sport, right? And look, my phone, I get a couple phone calls a year. It's either a young skydiver wants to do a boogie somewhere or a young skydiver wants to start a drop zone. And I have all the patience in the world for these people, right? Because look, that's people helped me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pay it forward. But usually the conversation goes like, dude, I want to start this boogie. And my friend said, you're the guy. And I want to do this boogie and name the country, right? Sure. And I said, okay, great. Have you ever been there? No, dude, I've never been there. Okay, well,
go.
You need to go there. And then, where's the runway? Where are you going to land? Where's the hotel? Where are you getting fuel? Do they have skydiving there? You'll have to talk to civil aviation and get approval. And then usually after about 15 minutes, dude, that just sounds like a lot of work, and they hang up and thank you, and then you never hear from them again. And it's the
Sure.
same with starting a drop zone. If you're going to do it right, the biggest joke in skydiving is be a DZO because you make all the free skydives you want and you only work on weekends, right?
It's kind of funny because looking back, I still hate the son of a bitch, but looking back, I understand Michael Hawk so much more than I did when I worked for the guy.
See, I never met him. Yeah, I don't know him at all.
We
So
don't even
yeah.
need to go into it. Suffice it to say, he made Ray Farrell look like a Teletubby. I mean, yeah, just a total sweetheart. But
uh,
it's next level when you think that not only are you responsible for the business side of things as a DZO or as somebody running boogies, but you're also responsible for what the individual jumpers that are paying to be there do. Because at the end
right,
of the day, it's your reputation and it's you that may have to defend a lawsuit or all this crazy shit that goes on in skydiving.
right.
And especially as a younger jumper, of course, we don't think about that shit. I do
No.
now, but I sure as shit didn't back then. And when I finally did start thinking about it, all it did was make me decide I would never want to be a DCO.
Well, people with the boogies, they think I have this magic wand, and I wave the magic wand, or what's the commercial? I got the easy button. I press the easy button,
Right?
and the airplane, the world champion load organizers, the packers, the beach with the hotel and the permission, it just magically appears,
Well,
right?
and it must too, because you're talking about doing boogies in very exotic locations that don't necessarily follow the rules and decorum that you might want from business stateside. So I'm assuming,
Right, right.
without going into details, I'm assuming that there's quite a bit of palm greasing going on to some degree because holy shit,
Yes, yeah,
man.
right. And I can tell you to keep the blue hole open for skydiving
Sure.
has been a 20-year ongoing struggle.
Has to
And
be.
on right. We were actually took off with a load, got halfway with their air traffic control says you absolutely cannot drop, return back to San Pedro, right? So we get back and we've like what and because someone needed a envelope for a reelection campaign
My Lord.
donation, right? So those things, and you have to remember that the biggest thing that I do when I go somewhere new to skydive, and number one, usually I've had a local partner, and these boogies that I run, I can't do these by myself. Everyone's like, "Oh, you're the greatest guy." Look, I have people here in Costa Rica. I have David Clark, long skydiving in Costa Rica, and he helps me with the boogies here in Palau. I had Navat, Gornowski, who had the dive shop there, and skydiver, who used to jump up he got his license up at Davis, at Race Place. So all these places, a couple places I've done pretty much on my own, but what happens, what people don't understand, you can do a boogie in a country 5 times, and on the sixth time, they're
Sure.
going to throw all kinds of new things at you. And in Belize, I've been through in 20 years, I've been through, so there's 2 political parties in Belize. So like every 6 years, they just take turns, right? So now I got a different minister of aviation. I got a different minister of tourism. I got and now this guy's like, and then they always change the director of civil aviation because it's always somebody's cousin or somebody,
Sure.
political appointments. So now the guy that I have a great relationship with, now I got to go in and now I deal with the guy who are you? I don't care. Get out of here. Right. So there was 2 years, I think about 5, 6 years ago, we didn't jump the blue hole
Hmm.
because they wouldn't let us. Right. And so I'm flying to Belize. And that's the other thing. I'm flying to Belize a couple of times to have meetings with these people. I'm not getting paid, I'm
Sure.
going on my own dime to try to keep that open, right? And like when we did this year, we did the Seychelles boogie, and then 2 weeks later we did the Skyfari boogie in South Africa.
Yep.
And so like at the Seychelles boogie, and unfortunately, yeah, I don't know if you know Francesco Drossi, he just passed away on a base jump. He was my guy with, he was with the drop zone there. They were trying to get going in Seychelles. And we talked on the phone for hours. And as glamorous as it sounds, my wife and I flew from Costa Rica, took 2 days to go to Seychelles to spend 4 days. We got to meet the president with Francesco. We went and talked to Civil Aviation, all these things, and flew 2 days back. As glamorous as that sounds, that was not glamorous, right?
No.
And so even after doing that and being to see the president, Civil Aviation gave us so many headaches there, so many. And I was just like, one of the, and I finally had to tell the airport manager, who was on our side, and of course he has the hires up at the main headquarters. And I just said, Tony, I've never been treated like this ever in any country we've ever gone to. And they sent me a bill for $20,000 for 4.5 days of security guards and lunches and administrative fee. And so, and I'm just like, what? Like, and it was, we had to get the president's office involved. And it took us, I was then in South Africa. I was running the South Africa boogie, still trying to clean up the Seychelles boogie, right? Like it was and those are the things that go on, right? That's my job.
There must come a time when you're contemplating the next boogie going, do I really want to fucking do this?
Sometimes, okay. That's a like, and there's times after a boogie, I'm like, oh my God, I am never doing another boogie again, right? Because of whatever, right? And sometimes I'll be at a boogie and I'm like, I am the stupidest skydiver on the face of the planet, right? But then here's what happens. It's like you see everyone there, everyone's having fun, like in Seychelles, for as difficult of a boogie that was. I got to be best man at Tom Sanders' beachfront wedding. Right. And we all got to jump into Bird Island, which was like and see 200-year-old tortoises. And so as much as, I go back to my hotel room and, these, all these issues are like, hitting me.
Yep.
I've learned to sort of, it's been a process. It's been a 20-year process.
Sure.
To calm myself and say, okay, don't get wound up about this.
Sure.
This is going to happen. Don't get wound up about this. And look, I can remember we had the plane break in Seychelles. It had a relay blew up and on the super caravan. A freak thing on startup, right? So I had to stand up and tell everyone at the boogie, this is, like I said, it's like planning a wedding for, 2 years and then the bride or groom don't show up, right? So I have to tell everyone, you guys, like, listen, I'm sorry, like the plane, we've had an electrical issue, jumping for the boogie's done, right? And no one, like, you're paying me money to skydive. I want you to skydive. I want everyone to have the greatest time, but there's nothing there's no other jump planes. There's no, like, it's not like I can call the drop zone 2 counties over and they can even just send me a 182, right?
Sure.
So, but you have to be honest with the people. And I can remember walking after I gathered all the skydivers together at the hotel, where we were in the big restaurant and bar area where we were packing and everything. And I tell everyone, I said, look, guys, I'm sorry. And that's another thing. When you run an exotic boogie, you just got to tell people the truth. You can't hide anything or say, well, maybe the plane will be flying tomorrow. So I said, guys, I'm sorry, bad news, plane's broke, blah, blah, blah. And everyone's like, womp, womp, womp. But everyone understood. I was walking back to my room because I needed to collect my thoughts, right? And one of my favorite people, Sharon Fielding, she's a Southern California jumper. She's awesome. And she came up and she looks at me and she says, come here. And she just gave me a hug.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, right. Like, thank you. She's like, I'm sorry. I said, thank you. And I walked back to my room and, For 5 minutes, I was devastated. And then I collected my thoughts. And okay, because, okay, we've all jumped, we've all made skydives in the Seychelles. Oh, darn, we're stuck in the Seychelles, right? It's not like I'm stuck at like Skydive Arizona with no airplanes to jump out of on a sunny day,
Right.
right? Like where there's not much to do. Like we're in the Seychelles for God's sakes.
Yep.
So so the next day we went to Lunatic, the little island, and me and Regan Tetlow, my wife, and his girlfriend, and David Clark was there with us. So we're and some other friends of ours. So we just go to Lunatic and we make the best of the day and go bicycling around. I was like, okay,
Sure.
eating ice cream on the sidewalk, having a fun day, hanging out. And I was like, okay, we all lived, no one got hurt. Everyone got some great jumps in,
Sure.
and that's it. And so I just say, okay, bring your Seychelles jump tickets to the Costa Rica boogie and use them here, right?
Well, and
That's the
two,
best I can do.
say you're stranded in the Seychelles, but you're stranded with people like Regan. I mean, are you kidding me? These are the people that know how to make the best of rough situations, And if I'm not mistaken, was Airwax not at that boogie?
No, they weren't there.
They weren't at
Yeah.
that one. I mean, you've got all these amazing people that have come to travel all that way, and I've been to the Seychelles. That's where I got married. I mean, it's
Right.
not a fucking shitty place to spend some time.
No. We're not in Afghanistan doing the Taliban 10 ways.
No, man, no, man. It's not a rough spot to get stuck in for sure. Now,
Right,
I did
right.
want to
So
ask, at at what point did you sit there as a normal skydiver? You're a working fireman. You've got all this going on. At what point did you sit down and go, I know what a great idea is. I should organize my first boogie.
so okay. I went to one of the George Jika's San Carlos boogies, and I don't know if you know George Jika. He was
Oh yeah.
legendary skydiver back in the day in Skydive Arizona, and it's a shame he still doesn't jump. He taught me so much about load organizing and running events, and he did a boogie there. We had a great time. I mean, we had a blast, and I was like, oh, that was fun. But there were some things I was thinking, if I would have done this maybe and that maybe, and that was fun, and all our friends were there and we're jumping onto the beach, and I'm like, that was kind of fun. So I meet my wife, and we're dating at the time, and we go to Belize. So I take her on a trip to Belize. I got to impress her, right? So we go to Belize, and back then in San Pedro, I don't know if you've ever been to Ambergris Caye, Belize. It's a island. It's about 27 miles long, and back then it was just this sleepy little awesome place. So we go across the river. There wasn't even a bridge. You had to go on this hand pull barge to go across the river to get to the north end of the island. And we get there, and there's this big, huge field open right at the beach. And I look at the field, I look at the sky, I look around because the town is so fun. A little beach bar on every corner, and I'm like, man, this would be a great place for a boogie. And it took me 2 years and 8 trips. And finally, they said, yeah, we needed a regime change, right? So the new party got in power. They brought in a new guy to be the civil aviation director because they kept saying no. And I didn't know what I was doing. And we did the first boogie. We had 99 people. The Farrington sent a caravan we actually picked it up in Mesquite from Brad Jesse. He was flying it. Right. And so that's where we left from. And we flew down. Doug Forth was helping me. I think you probably know Doug from your cross key days. And
Oh,
he's one of my dear friends. So we fly down, Jeff Farrington and Dave Kaiser and myself and Doug and my two friends of mine from Australia. We fly down in the caravan. We get there. We have 99 people, super successful boogie. And I'm like, because I thought I'm only going to do this once, right? Seriously, like I'm only going to do this one time. And at the end of the boogie, everyone's like, when's the dates next year? And then the people in San Pedro, hey, when are you going to do this next year? Right. Because and so, okay, we'll do it again the next year. And then unfortunately the boogie two, we had a really unfortunate wingsuit fatality that takes the wind out of your sails. And I'm like, man, I don't want to do this again. And then, I talked to Lyle and he's like, listen, this is going to happen. You handled it great. So then we did 8 boogies in 7 years in Belize.
Wow.
And yeah, and then the blue hole became a bigger and bigger thing, and then we did Nicaragua. The wind blew. The Nicaragua boogie is legendary for, half the people got food poisoning. The wind blew, and people still come to me and say that was the best boogie they ever went to. They made one jump, but the parties were legendary.
Sure.
So we did that, and then I took a year off because I had started the drop zone in Oceanside, and I took a year off, and then I'm sitting at the drop zone. My friend Whitney, she's awesome, longtime skydiver. She's at the drop zone helping me do some stuff, and she's like, "Hey, have you ever met Navat? He learned to skydive up at Ray's place, and he has a dive shop and all this stuff in Palau." So we call Navat, right? We call him, and he's like, "Hey, I'm coming to Southern California to skydive. Why don't you meet me?" So I meet him, and we hit it off great. And he's like, "Oh man, a boogie in Palau, we do it." So he calls John Stewart that has the drop zone in Guam. He's like, "Yeah, you can have the pack for a week. We'll send it out." So I'm thinking I'm out of the boogie business, right? Like, and I'm running a drop zone. So we go to Palau, and Phil Easdale, Phil that worked on the planes for Ray.
Well.
So Phil flies the pack out from Guam. It goes like Guam, Yap to Palau. That's the way he got there. And we have the boogie. Everyone has a great time. And then it just
kept going.
It just kept going. Like, but I'll tell you a really funny quick story. So Navat had, I don't know, 500-600 skydives when I come out there to Palau. And Dan O'Brien messages me because he goes to Palau a lot. Ray's old partner, because they do the recovery thing for the World War II
Sure.
people, the veterans. And so they do the body recoveries there and stuff. So he sends me a message. There is no beach to land on in Palau. I said, well, Navat has a landing area for me by the international airport. So I fly out in December. Now we've got everyone's paid for the boogie, and the boogie is going to be in April. I fly out in December. Navat picks me up. We have a great time. So he's like, I said, Navat, we got to go see the landing area. Oh yeah. Let's go see. So we drive up, and we go just maybe a half a mile or so, mile north of the international airport. He takes me and shows me this field. The field has a hill on one side, power lines in the road on the other side, and it drops off at this end and on the side. And I look at this thing and I'm thinking, okay, there's like 20 people come to the boogie that would land here, but no one, because when you do a boogie, it's lowest common denominator, right? You don't know canopy skills and stuff. So then I walk to the edge and I look over, because if you go long, you're going to go over this little gully into this gully. And I look down and there's all this water, and I see something move. I go, Navat, is that crocodiles? He goes, yeah. So I said, Navat, if they don't get electrocuted on one end by the power lines, they're going to go long and they're going to get eaten by the crocodiles. I said, we can't use this. He's like, well, the only thing we can do then is land at the international airport. And I said, well, how do we get permission for that? So now my stomach's churning, right? I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. I got all these people coming, and we don't have a place to land parachutes. So we go to the international airport. Now in Palau, it's a unique place because it's so in the middle of nowhere out in Micronesia. All the flights come in after 8 o'clock at night. So the international airport is closed all day long to airliners, right? Oh. There's only a couple little planes flying in and out, local planes. And Navat had an R-66 helicopter he had there for heli tours. So we go, he's like, look, we're going to have to go talk to, I think his name was Mr. Obachang or something. We'll call him that for the story. So Mr. Obachang, he's the head of he's in charge of the whole airport. So I'm like, okay. So I put a nice golf shirt on and nice shorts, and I got my briefcase with all my material because I got to sell this guy on why we need to land at the international airport. So we go there and I shake his hand, and the guy, he's a huge Islander guy, he's a giant guy, and it's like shaking a baseball glove, shaking his hand. And what's that bitter root that they eat? They chew on the islands, they chew on it and it makes their teeth all. So he's spitting in this cup, right? And he's like, well, Navat, he's like, well, I don't mind if you skydive here at the airport, but he says, if someone hits the lights, then the man has to come to Guam to fix them, and then we have to close the airport. He's talking about the big box lights on the runway, how many feet are left, and right. So he doesn't want, if anyone hits that, they have to bring a guy from Guam to repair it. And I'm thinking, you don't have an electrician that can put a light bulb in, oh, okay. So I'm like, because and I'm giving him my whole spiel about where I've done boogies and my experience, and I own a drop zone. He didn't give a shit. All he cared about was someone hitting these box lights along the runway. So he tells Navat, here's what you do. You jump the helicopter tomorrow at 3 p.m. and show me the parachute landing here at the airport. Okay. So next day, Navat and I, we get in with this pilot, Martin. Martin flies us up to like $7 or $8 grand. Me and Navat jump out of the helicopter. We land. I land right in front of the fire station. All the firemen are like, where the fuck did you come from? What's going on here? Navat lands. We don't hit the boxes. And there's Mr. Obachang way over at his office at the airport terminal. And he gives us the thumbs up. And Navat says, we have a boogie. And that was it. That was the approval.
That's ridiculous.
And I'm just like, oh, thank God. And we had a great time.
It's funny because, I've seen pictures of Palau, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Palau is just a chain of islands that literally is trees, then water.
It's limestone. Yeah, just limestone comes up out of the ocean with trees all over them. Yeah.
Because it's stunningly beautiful. We had a few people, of course, spurred by DOB, would go over there to help with the aircraft and recovery of the World War II guys. And you'd see pictures and video, and it's stunningly beautiful, but it's literally just limestone trees. There's no beach.
Yeah.
So you kept saying Palau, and I'm like, how the fuck do you have a boogie in Palau? And you just explained it.
Yeah. And then we jumped onto Palau Island, which was
really
so moving. Yeah. So Palau still has the remnants of the runway there, right?
Yeah.
And for people that don't know, one of the worst battles of World War II was on Palau Island, which is part of Palau. It's about 30 miles south of the main island. And so we all jumped in there. And of course, now I'm worried because there's literally the runway, and the runway is like coral and stuff. And if you fall down on that, you're getting scuffed up. And we had that actually happen to a jumper, and another boogie got all scuffed up. But anyway, I'm telling everyone, wear tennis shoes, wear your jumpsuit, wear some gloves. Don't crash land, because this runway is going to be like sandpaper. So everyone, we jumped in there. I went out and spotted all the loads. We jumped in. And then there's a guy, Des. He's an Islander there, a good friend of Navat's, great guy. Des picked us up in his tour trucks and drove us around and gave us the whole tour of the island and talked about the battles. And what's crazy is, this runway was the shortest bombing run in World War II. The B-25s took up, and a quarter of a mile away, they dropped bombs on the hill where all the Japanese were. And there was like thousands of Japanese soldiers under the island in the limestone cave. Sure. So being in Palau, and that's one of the great things about the boogies. It's more than just skydiving. It's really learning about the country that you're in and experiencing that.
You say Peleliu, and I actually I read a book a bunch of years back called With the Old Guard, and it's written by one of the soldiers that was there. That airfield specifically was the scene of an incredible, vicious battle.
Right.
Holy shit, to land, to be in free fall and then to land on such a historic site, and it had to have been incredibly powerful.
it was really, I mean, it was really something to
Wow.
do that.
Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
as we get down towards the end, is there a dream spot to have a boogie that you haven't done yet, or that you're daydreaming about having one?
The untethered spacewalk boogie.
That sounds like a
You
good.
know, here's the thing. It's two places I always wanted to have the boogie. Once I got back into it, it was Maldives, which we did. We did 3 boogies back to back, rotated people every 8 nights. We brought 3 complete groups of people in.
Wow.
We got out of there 3 weeks before the world closed for COVID.
Yeah. Oh,
Like
wow.
unbelievable, right? So for me, it's hard because here in Costa Rica, it's great. I live in Costa Rica. I live a 35-minute drive down to where we jump at the hotel. I have all the connections here. And it's great. The runway's next door to the all-inclusive resort. We do all beach landings. We jump into the little town in front of all the townspeople. But because we've done these other places, one of my friends, she's like, some of the skydivers look at Costa Rica as like jumping at Elsinore now, right? Because it's so right. We've done it. And so, but for me, because the weather's so good here in February, we've had, this is going to be I think our eighth boogie here. And we've only had like 1.5 total weather days, right? So, and for me, because there's nothing worse as an organizer. 2 things that are terrible for me: when someone gets hurt and the weather turns to shit.
Sure.
Like that's terrible for me.
Sure.
So here it's easy. I've got David, who's my contact with civil aviation. We have a great relationship. We have a great relationship with the local domestic airline, so they stay out of our way. They bring our people out to the boogie. So, it's such a great place. It's such a great setup for the boogie.
Sure.
And then we still do, like, we're going to do a little one jump blue hole boogie the week after that. We're going to take the plane up and take about 40 people and jump the blue hole. But as far as new places, man, I just, I don't know. Like, it's hard. People don't realize how hard it is to open a new country, right? I have to fly out there. My wife and I go out there, we check it out. Then you got to talk to everyone. And then, and look, some places get it. And other places, I mean, there are some amazing, amazing places that I've wanted to go. And they've said, absolutely, you cannot skydive here. Only the military can skydive here.
Wow.
Right. And so I don't know, we've done, let me think. So we've done Belize, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Palau, Seychelles, Maldives, and South Africa. So that's a pretty good lineup. We're going to do South Africa again. We're going to do Skyfari in 2027. Matter of fact, I just talked to Billy yesterday at great length. So we're going to do that. And my thing is, it's also, I'm sort of getting to the end of, and everyone's like, you'll never retire. But
Yeah.
it's, like, I'm going to work on boogie stuff. When we get off this chat, I've got to send some emails about, Ray was emailing me this morning about the aircraft,
Sure.
so it's always every day, even though, the boogie's not till February. I probably spend an hour to 2 hours a day sort of working on things every day, every other day.
Sure.
My wife and I, we need to drive down to the beach bar in Santa Teresa and talk to the manager there that we know about. We're gonna block the whole bar and restaurant just for us to have a private party. So we got to talk to them about that. So there's just a lot of work that goes into it.
Sure.
And I'm kind of at the point, I want to go to someone else's boogie and be their pain in the ass. I want to go be that guy at someone else's boogie.
Yeah.
So, but I just want to say before we go, like, the thing to me, people are always like, oh, you run these great boogies. The boogies aren't about me. And I always tell people, I'm just the glue that holds these boogies together.
Sure.
And for me, I get, because people are like, why do you still do this? Well, for me, believe me, it's not fame or fortune. Which is kind of comical, but I like to create things. I like to see, can I do this? Can I pull this off and do it well?
Sure.
Right. And then the other thing I love is we've created the tsunami tribe. We've got people who come and they put their faith in me to provide a good service to them. And what I love is when people come to the boogies and they didn't know each other. Maybe they've been at a boogie together before, but they don't really know each other. And they come to our boogies, and we do, like, here we do the golf tournament, we do the poker every night, and stuff. So for me, when I see people on Facebook or Instagram and they're posting pictures like it's someone's birthday, and most of the pictures of them with that person at one of my boogies, to me, like that makes it all worthwhile. It's funny. Like I'll sit at the hotel and have a cup of coffee, and in the evenings, and I watch people run around there. Everyone's so happy and stuff. And I'm like, man, like I created this. This is, so for me, it's like, it's just cool to create that. And it's cool because I've created memories for skydivers that will last their lifetime. And they have pictures. I mean, I've had people that show me pictures that Bruno and Tom have taken of them over, Maldives, or over to Seychelles, or over to Blue Hole. And, these people get to do things. So for me to provide that adventure of what you're not, look, we all have fun jumping at the regular home drop zone. We all have fun, but to provide, I'm going to this foreign country and I'm going to jump with my friends somewhere no one else has ever jumped. Right. Yeah. And the other thing I love is someone with 300 jumps comes, and they're from a little 182 drop zone somewhere, and they go back to their drop zone and they're like, what'd you do? Hey, I jumped the Blue Hole last week. They have bragging rights. I'm giving people bragging rights for when they go back to their drop zone. And I just think that's pretty cool. And for me, luckily, I have friends who are, the world champions, the pilots, the Ray Farrells, the people that own the aircraft, the Marcus Bastucks, the people. I mean, Marcus, Jesus Christ, who answers an email without knowing the guy and says, yeah, I'll send my caravan all the way to the Maldives from Germany, right? I'll send my caravan all the way to Seychelles from Germany, right? Yeah. In the work that goes into that. So I have these people who, not just the participants, but my staff, they're so loyal to me, man. I don't ever want to let them down. Right. Sure. And I've said this before, if it cost you, $5,000 to come to a boogie, I'm going to put $5 million worth of effort in to make sure that you have a great time and that you're well taken care of.
But I mean, that says volumes for why you're as successful as you are, because you're still going 20 years later and countless boogies and countless participants. You don't get to keep doing that if you don't go that extra mile, especially in a sport with half a degree of separation between people. I mean, reputation counts for almost as much as being safe in this sport,
right.
That you're able to keep going 20 years later just as strong, and people are like, when's the next fucking boogie, man?
There's people, we're at Skyfari, and everyone's like, where's the boogie next year? I'm like, guys, can I just enjoy the success of this? Right? We just had to have the gyrocopter clear elephants out of the landing area so we could skydive. Can I just absorb this and enjoy this before we talk about where we're going?
Again, right?
But I love the excitement.
That's an important thing, though, right? Is being able to soak up just that moment. And my last little story is flying in Dubai, and the first time that I had to tell people, ground crew, to get the camels off the runway so I could land the plane. Yeah. And those are the moments that you just kind of want to step back and go, did I just fucking say that? Did that really just happen? Holy shit, and I'm sure for you, it's got to be times 10. So I can imagine that just wanting to let it soak in is probably pretty important.
Yeah. And luckily, I have a very understanding wife. She's not a skydiver. She made one tandem in Belize. And so she helps me with all the accounting and all that. And this, now my daughter's off at college now, and my son's in California. But to have to take these boogies take a lot of time away from the family, right?
Sure.
A lot of time. And look, like the last 3 months before a boogie, like I'm on the phone every day, right? So you need that support also. I need that support from her to
Sure.
make these successful, because I can't imagine anyone that would, hey, honey, I'm going to send $100,000 of our own money to some unknown hotel in the Maldives, and I think I can fill 72 rooms for 24 nights in a row, because the total bill is going to be $1.2 million, right?
That takes a special kind of person to go, okay, yeah, you do that.
Yeah, yeah. And she's just like, well, she said, if anyone can do it, you can. I mean, that's to me is that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So luckily, that's what's been able to keep this going.
Well, I'll tell you what, I have yet to attend one of your boogies, but after talking to you, I think that's just become my bucket list, is to try and at least go one of them.
I think you should come and jump the blue hole with it. Okay. So Costa Rica is great. All your friends are going to be there. Jump, 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 jump. But then there's the blue hole. So
Yeah,
you decide, or come to
I'll
both.
tell you what, I've kind of gotten to the point in the age in my career where a couple of jumps in an incredible destination over jump like a wild man sounds better. So the
Right.
blue hole, I think, would be, I'd rather have 2 or 3 jumps that knock my fucking socks off than 50 jumps that were pretty good.
Right. Exactly.
Well, Rich, I'll tell you what, I mean, we only just started talking a few days ago, and I'm so happy that we were able to get this organized and sit down and talk to you. And I have a feeling we could probably fill about a dozen drop zones, or a dozen podcasts with stories about drop zones and boogies and all that stuff. So I'm going to put a pin in a round 2 for this one, because I would
Okay, great.
love to get some more stories out of you. But for today, anyway, I cannot thank you enough for your time.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. And
Absolutely.
we'll be in touch, and we'll get you to a boogie.
Perfect, Rich. Thank you so much.
All right, then. Thank you.
Well, there you have it. Another episode of the Lunatic Fringe podcast, brought to you as always by, well, wait, not as always, actually. Brought to you now by Gyro. Formerly known as NZ Aerosports, you'll head to gyro.com for their next level line of canopies. By Pussfoot, the Extreme Sports Collective. Head over to pussfoot.com to check it out. By Summit Parachute Systems, check out summitparachutesystems.com to talk to Jarrett Martin and the gang about kick-ass pilot rigs, rigging courses, and more. By Flyaway Indoor Skydiving, go to flyawaytn.com and check out all the cutting-edge stuff to come. By Pure Spectrum CBD, head to purespectrumcbd.com to check out their wide range of CBD products. And as for us, head to the lunaticfringepodcast.com to listen to any of the hundreds of episodes currently available, hit the link for our YouTube channel, pick up your copy of the Lunatic Fringe book or The Accidental Stripper, and get a sneak peek at upcoming guests. Once again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Get on